everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Microeconomics at Ozarka College. Today what I'd like to do is give you just a little bit of feedback on the chapters 5 and 6 activities that I finished grading yesterday. And then I'm going to tell you what we've got coming up due for chapters 7 and 8. Okay? So like I said, I did finish grading chapters 5 and 6 activities yesterday. If you haven't already looked at your grades for those activities and read the grading comments, go ahead and do that as soon as you can. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Most of you did well on the assignment. It's obvious that most of you are putting the time and effort in that's needed to do well on the assignment, so keep up the good work on that. Now, I did notice there were a few of you that seemed to wait too long to get started on the assignment, and you weren't able to get everything finished. The best way to solve that problem, obviously, is to get started earlier on your activities. But other than that, most of you did well. If I did have to count points off or anything, I tried to be very direct on exactly, and explain exactly what you missed and, what the correct answer was. If you have any questions at all about what the correct answer should have been, or, if I didn't provide that enough information for you, just let me know. And like I said, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about that. One other thing that I need to mention is there are a couple of you that are still not putting your name on your assignment. And I did count a few points off for that. So just make sure that you put your name at the top of the first page of your assignment. And the reason for that, obviously, in addition to other things, is that I print out your assignment before I grade it. It just makes it easier for me to grade. So if your name's not on there, then I have to write it on there, and I really shouldn't have to write your name on your assignment. So make sure that you actually, put your name at the top of your assignment. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to point out on the assignment. Like I said, most of you are doing well. Most of you are using the resources provided. So just keep up the good work on that. On the discussion that we had that dealt with the elasticity of demand for cigarettes, I thought that went very well. I really appreciate everyone's participation on the discussion and the ideas and examples that you gave. So keep up the good work on the discussions. I hope that you're finding that the discussions are beneficial in the sense that they allow you to take the concepts that we're learning about, for example, elasticity of demand, in the chapters of the textbook and apply it to a real world situation, a real world market. And so like I said, I really appreciate everyone's participation. I really enjoyed reading everyone's comments. Everybody had some good ideas on that. So keep up the good work on the discussions. On the chapter test, most of you did well on that. Just as a reminder, you can take those tests as many times as you want to up until the due date, and your highest grade is automatically recorded. So just kind of keep that in mind. So like I said, overall, most of you did well on the chapters 5 and 6 activities. All right, so that brings us to what we've got coming up due next. So let's go to the activities page in my Ozarka here. Right now, we are kind of on the last part of week 5 of the semester. Just have a couple of days left in this or a few days left in this particular week. We don't have anything else due this week since we had work due earlier this week, but we do have work due towards the end of next week. So during week 6, which is next week, if you'll notice here, we've got the chapter 7 and 8 activities due. So you have the assignment, test, and discussion all due by Friday of next week, which is February 20th. All right? So you've got a little over a week, basically, to work on these chapter 7 and 8 activities here. All right? So get started on those as soon as you can. Let me very quickly tell you what we're going to be covering in these chapters. Starting with chapter 7, this is where we're going to be looking at consumer choice and demand. So specifically, we're going to look at utility analysis, which is basically what is used by consumers to make decisions about how to use their resources. So we're going to be looking at how consumers make choices as far as how, of course, we learned from previous chapters that what households or consumers are trying to do when they're using their resources, making economic decisions. They're trying to maximize their satisfaction or utility from the resources that they have. In other words, trying to get as many of their wants met as possible with their resources that they have, their scarce resources. So it directly ties into the basic economic problem of scarce resources and unlimited wants. And so we're going to look at, in chapter 7, at how economists kind of model that utility maximization process that consumers go through when making economic decisions. All right, and then chapter 8, we're going to kind of switch from the household focus, which was in chapter 7, to in chapter 8, we're going to look at how producers make decisions. So in chapter 8, we're going to look at production and cost in the firm. So we're going to look at things like explicit and implicit cost, accounting versus economic profit, normal profit, fixed versus variable cost. We're also going to look at marginal product. And you'll notice in the next few chapters, or actually the rest of the chapters in the textbook, we're going to be looking at a lot of marginal values. And of course, in economics, we already learned that economic decisions are made on the margin. They're made, what the additional cost versus the additional benefit that I'm going to get from that particular economic decision. And so it should seem logical to you that we're going to be looking at a lot of marginal values. So make sure you understand what marginal is, and it's going to help you when we look at all these marginal values like marginal cost and marginal returns and things like that. All right. And then also in chapter 8, we're going to be looking at a law that directly applies to marginal returns, called the law of diminishing marginal returns. We'll also look at marginal cost, which is the other side of the equation. When we're trying to, of course, as we've learned in previous chapters, what producers are trying to maximize, or firms are trying to maximize when they're making economic decisions, is they're trying to maximize profit. And so obviously profit is basically your revenue minus your cost. And so that's what firms are trying to do, is find that point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost is going to be the point where they're going to maximize their profit. And chapter 8 is kind of that first chapter where you're going to start learning about how producers make economic decisions and what tools they use to do that. All right. Also in chapter 8, we're going to look at short run versus long run and how that's defined in economics. Okay. All right. And this chapter 8 is very, very critical to understanding the next few chapters that we'll cover, starting with chapter 9, because chapter 8 just kind of lays the framework or groundwork for learning the basic concepts of producer decision making, which will then apply to different types of markets in chapters 9 through 11. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind, that you really need to have a good understanding of the concepts in chapter 8 in order to be able to learn the concepts from the next few chapters after that. Okay, so take your time, make sure that you're using the resources that are provided. Of course, you have your textbook, you have the PowerPoint slides that I've got on the assignment page. You've also got the videos that I've posted on the assignment page. Those videos are really good as far as going through the concepts and really explaining those concepts in a very simplistic way. So make sure you're using those videos. Most of you are. A few of you probably need to focus on that just a little bit more. But that's all I have for you for today. So again, chapter 7 and 8 due Friday of next week, February 20th. Have a good weekend and have a good next week. And I will talk to you again, probably not next week, but early the week after. Okay? I'll talk to you then. Thank you.